Today's video, we're going to go over The Great Gatsby. This is a book that I really loved when I was a lot younger. Rereading it, it didn't hold up as well. I think I've read better love stories. I've been reading a lot of poetry recently, so it doesn't really hit the same. It's not as expressive. It's not as, I don't know, like deeper, spiritual, like that kind of vibe. And that's the only caveat I would say to this, but it is a very good book. And particularly the things that stand out most about the book is because it encapsulates the Roaring Twenties so well. When you think about the conflict between old money and new money, when you think about the bootleggers, when you think about the partying, when you think about prohibition, when you think about the things that were going on in this age, especially post World War I, it's a very interesting time. And really most of my conception of these ideas come from this book, and that's why it's remembered to this day. It encapsulates an entire decade. It encapsulates an entire generation, and it's really a well-crafted story. It's very interesting. Dialogue is like, I'm not going to spoil the story. I'm not going to exactly tell you what happens. There's a few things that don't really make sense with the plot, but again, it's a good book. It really is something special, and it's awesome to see like something that's so old be able to reverberate for so long. Like you think like most things that are released today are going to be forgotten about in a year, are going to be forgotten about in 5 years, but there's very few works that like most people have read, and there's a reason why every single high schooler is forced to read this book. When I read this for the first time, I was like, I don't think I was brought to tears, but I was like, I really felt something for, a good 30-40 minutes. And, nowadays, I don't even know if I have the attention span for that, but I read the ending and it really redeemed the rest of the book. Like, not saying the rest of the book wasn't good, but I was like, all right, what is this building to? And then you see how everything kind of comes full circle. You see the ending and you see that it's like a bittersweet ending. It's a great ending, but it's a sad one. And to be able to evoke emotion through the power of words is one of the most inspiring ideas ever. And it's really a great novel from F. Scott Fitzgerald. I wonder if I should pick up his other stuff, because I'm not familiar with any of his other works at all, but I'm sure he has other good writings, and I'm sure he has very interesting things, and maybe that's something that I pick up in the future. But what I think is different from when I first read it versus when I've read it now is definitely the influence of poetry. I've just read Faust. I've read some Rumi. I've read some Emily Dickinson. I've read a good amount of poetry now at this point, and when you really are well versed in symbolism and well versed in poetry, it's very hard to come close to the emotion that comes through those lines. It's very hard to feel the same way about just a linear story than it is about, when you're filling in the gaps with your mind. And I think that's the only reason why it didn't hold up so strongly in my mind. I think it's the only reason why I'm not as impressed with it as well. I've read things like The Prophet that are, a story, but it's also expressive. You read things like the Book of Mere Dad, where it's introspective as well as, you read it and you're like, I'm reading something that I shouldn't be reading. You're reading something that has like almost, it feels like the knowledge is illegal. And that's the thing about this book. It's a really good story. It has a really good theme about it. It has a very interesting plot, but I don't think it hits at the same spiritual level that I was looking for, that I look for in a lot of the works that I read. And only for that reason, I don't think it holds up as well as I believed it would when I was younger. But again, it's also just not my style of things. It's not really something that I'm interested in. Like, romance isn't the most exciting thing to me. Maybe Shakespeare will be different, and I think that's something I'm going to pick up soon, because a lot of the people that influence me, a lot of the people that I really aspire to be and really aspire to be like are very much inspired by his works. And I'm curious to see how I'm going to view those works now that I'm very interested in literature, now that I'm very interested in poetry and things of that like. So, it's cool. And the reason why I've been revisiting a lot of books is because I want to see how much I've changed. I want to see how my ideas have changed. I want to see how I interpret different stories, different mediums, things that I used to love, things that I used to not like. Like, how am I changing? How am I adapting? And how do I view these stories and these tales of humanity differently? And it's really a cool experience. And if you've never gone back and reread a book, I think it's something that's really worthwhile to do, because you know, it's just cool to see, you know, at the very least you're going to pick up a new detail, and you know, maybe if you're lucky you're going to see things in a whole new different light, and you're going to take a whole new different perspective with that book. And it's almost like you have a different relationship with the book. It's almost like you grew as an individual and the book hit you differently. It hit a different part of your soul, it hit a different part of your psyche. And yeah, it's really cool reading these books that I've just read. The last book I reviewed was The Catcher in the Rye. Felt a lot different about this book. I feel a lot different about this book as well. Maybe it's time I revisit Crime and Punishment, something of that like. Maybe it's time I, you know, go back to books that I read way in the past when I was like very young. And yeah, it's cool. I love this book. I will link it in the description. If you haven't read this book already, you probably should. It's like one of the most classic American novels of all time. I think it very well encapsulates the entire decade in which it's set, and I think it's really a cool way to get like a bird's eye view perspective of the time of Prohibition, of what was going on, of the culture, of, you know, the battle between old and new money, the battle between you know, love, like marrying for love and marrying for money, and like all of these weird traditional norms that were kind of flipped on its head during that time period. So love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I'll catch you in the next one.